much, Professor Harish, for and of course Filmi and Aikriya for forcing me to be here with you, because it's very difficult when you are teaching and you are also doing some other work. It is very difficult to concentrate. But this is the pressure with which actually what we call baptization by fire. So this is the way actually we all have grown, and this is the way our lectures have materialized, and they have been converted into articles and so on and so forth. So today I'm trying to venture in a very, not very new, but of course the formulations are a little bit new and very dicey, because I am going to travel a very thin path. If you fall this side, then people will call you communal, and if you remain on the edge, even then people will take with the pinch of the sword. So I have titled this project as Indian Universalism to Particularism, a hypothesis for Indian sociology. And if you see my lectures, or if you have followed my writings, I have already tried to problematize Indian sociology and try to probe the nature and scope of Indian sociology. I've already done a paper, How Egalitarian is Indian Sociology. So what is left, you can definitely go through that. I've already done another, a volume which is in print, Dalit Studies, that is Rational Hierarchy and Typologies. And then if you have seen my another lecture, and that is on YouTube, that is Different Shades of Sociology, a rationale for subaltern perspective. And today, I'm just trying to treat a very different line and look at Indian universalism, how it has been there in the general walk of life, and yet all of a sudden it is reduced to particularism. So in that context, I'm just trying to argue that what can be a hypothesis or the subject matter of sociology. Now, to begin with, I have taken clue from number of Western scholars, and I'm not trying to put or juxtapose. I'm not trying to juxtapose Indian versus Western. Rather, I'm trying to argue a very simple case that the metaphysical values, the philosophical aspects, which are germane in the Indian sociology or sociology as a large, the metaphysics or the philosophical notion which are there in universal sociology, whether those philosophical or metaphysical values are present in India or no. If they are present in India, then why our sociologists have not taken note of this? Second, even if sociologists have taken note of that, why they have not continued with those values, and all of a sudden a Western sociology, or you can say European and American sociology, that is imposed upon us, and we have to engage with that. Now, I begin that before coming to the topic, what has motivated me to look for these values in Indian sociology? And why should one venture? Well, while teaching methodology of social sciences, you all know that I venture in 8 types of sociology, and I try to look how sociology has evolved in different parts of the world with their own immediate needs. Rather, you can go to France with Newtonian physics model, Germany, Cartesian dualism. It is bread and butter to my students, they all know it, but not just for repetition. If you go further a little bit, especially when I start reading, as you know, Enlightenment is considered to be the beginning of modernity, and that is where sociology starts emerging. But if you look at the romantic conservative reaction, especially to the philosophy of enlightenment, the romantic conservative reaction, what was it trying to argue? And they were trying to say that the positive value have been too much in the social sciences. And positive value, that means objective analysis, that is observation and experimentation, are writ large in the social sciences, and therefore the development of social sciences has not taken note of tradition, imagination, feeling, emotions, and actually there is need for revival of religion, poetry, art. In addition to that, there has to be group, community, and nation. They have to bounce back. If we really want to have a social sciences which is meaningful for the society, then we have to return back to religion. We have to return back to nation. We have to return back to community. That was the criticism which started talking about. And romantic conservative movement was also that, the attitude of the philosophers criticized that the social institutions which were produced earlier, they were very calculated. The positivists produced a very calculated institution, and therefore we have to go back to organic development and organic development of the institution. That means you have to trace the history organically rather than deliberately formed institution. That was the criticism, one of the criticism of the romantic conservative, as they were called, of enlightenment. The second, actually, it brings me to the another proposition, and I'm talking about Robert Nisbet. Robert Nisbet, in his book Sociology as an Art Form, especially his chapter, the sources of imagination, that gave a very important vantage point for me to really look at this Indian sociology at a different place. Now, what he says in this, the sources of imagination, Robert Nisbet argues that sociology is without question one of the sciences, but it is also one of the arts, nourished by precisely the same kinds of creative imagination which are to be found in such areas as music, painting, poetry, novel, and art. So that means you need creativity also to look into sociology. It is not only observation and experimentation, rather you have to bring in the creativity also. He further adds that behind the creative act in any sciences, physical or social, lies a form of intensity of imagination, utilization of intuition, and what Sir Herbert Reed has called iconic imagination. Now here is a person, 1977, Robert Nisbet is talking about iconic imagination, and in 1957 sociological imagination was taught by C. Wright Mills. So there is actually a part of imagination which is not only based on observation and experimentation, because of which social sciences were growing. That is what actually I'm taking from. Now here, I'm also reminded of Radhakamal Mukherjee, who is quoting Albert Einstein. And according to Einstein, Einstein observed rather, the cosmic religious experiences, is the strongest and the noblest mainspring of scientific research. Now, he is a physicist and he is talking about intuition. Without intuition, there cannot be research, and you have seen in your research method, intuition was discarded as a source or epistemic basis of knowledge for scientific knowledge. But here is a physicist who is trying to argue that we need actually intuition. Now, therefore, we have to again fall back upon our intuition, we have to fall back upon imagination, and therefore I think we have to look again for our own sources in the society. Now this brings me to the third vantage point. When I started reading Ymagishi and Brinton, you all know how Shikai, Isikirion, the Japanese sociology, they discarded all the Western concepts and theories to understand the reality. And what they received to, they went to raw empiricism. They collected huge data to understand their society. Especially, they went to understand the basic aspect of a personality type. What is the personality type which is creating hindrance in the development of the society? And of course, you know that how Japanese revolution was a democratic revolution, and how actually how Eta, samurai, and they came together and gave their rights. But what is important for us to note here is that they also discarded sociology of knowledge. The Japanese sociologists, the young sociologists, 1930s and 40s, they discarded the Western concepts and also the sociology of knowledge as a theory. Now, therefore, friends, they started evolving their own scale to understand the basic personality type. So, their sociology is not imitation of the Western sociology or Western type of theoretical premises. Okay, now this brings me to the fourth vantage point of this paper, and reading of postmodernism, like postmodernists, especially Heidegger, Derrida, and Lyotard. They all attacked modernist belief in rationality. Now imagine, throughout modernity we were talking about objectivity. Now here is a phase where objectivity is being challenged. The second, they have also actually attacked rationality, objectivity, and universalism, and in whose favor they are rejecting rationality, objectivity, and universalism in favor of relativism and also identity. Now, if that is the case, then one should also be looking at that what it leads to, this objectivity and this rationality and universalism. I was just talking about that you have to also question the calculated and deliberately formed institutions, and therefore they started actually questioning colonialism, capitalism, Holocaust, World War I, World War II, Stalinism, Gulag, and whatnot actually. So how these were questioned by the people, because that actually Lyotard, if you look at his book, postmodern actually literature, he is talking about, or he defines, and I just give one liner, very emphatic definition I have found, and this is, Lyotard defines postmodernism as incredulity towards meta-narratives. So how this meta-narrative actually has emerged and has produced, especially about the progress of science, and of course Lyotard adds that the meta-narratives which have got the, or which have given, meta-narratives which have given legitimacy to science and others, now they have created a problem because they are being now questioned. Meta-narratives are being questioned. Therefore, they have created a problem. Created a problem for whom? The whole discipline itself. Or you can say metaphysics behind that. And second, they have also created a crisis for university system. Universities where knowledges were taken as sacrosanct. Modernity, postmodernity. Modernity was considered to be the hallmark of the development of the whole civilization as such, but they are being questioned. Now, in the book Postmodern Condition, a report on knowledge, Lyotard uses both historical account given by Thomas Kuhn and Paul Feyerabend to prove his point that how meta-narratives of sciences have been proved false. And you all know that reading Thomas Kuhn, how Thomas Kuhn talks about that no, science doesn't know anything actually. They remain scientists till their formulas are actually solving the problem. But as soon as their formulas fail, what they become? They become all philosophers. So where is that exactness in the science? And second, whether there is an emancipatory agenda for the science, and I've given you examples of colonialism, or even the process of World War I, World War II, Gulag or Holocaust. All science was used to decimate the humanity rather than emancipating the humanity. Now therefore, I think the knowledge created by science is being questioned. And similarly, Feyerabend is talking about that how physics is being taught in the universities bereft of metaphysics. So you actually take out metaphysics and then you try to make it more objective, that yeah, it is that the same thing, exact results. But is it not, it is not humanly possible for a human being to understand the reality with a small method. And that's why his book is against method. So you cannot understand the total reality which is so angular, so deep, so actually long. And you are saying that as an individual, I will go and with one method, I will understand the reality. That is not correct according to Lyotard also. Now, in the same way, Foucault, with, I'm reading Foucault from Barry Smart and his book, Michel Foucault. If you read that, what he's trying to argue, he says that, especially actually, in reading Foucault with Barry Smart, one comes to realize that ranking of knowledge and scientificity, ranking of knowledge and scientificity by the general theories and global or totalitarian system of thought has sidelined and actually silenced and concealed a number of lower level histories. Lower level histories have been silenced or they have been concealed. Hence, Foucault argues that genealogical researches give expression to subjugated forms of knowledge and a voice to histories which have been submerged, concealed, and silenced. Now, therefore, I think there is a niche. There is a space for revisiting the meta-narratives of sociology, whether it was given by Karl Marx, Weber, Durkheim, or many other social scientists. So there is now a lot of rationing with different theories, different texts which have come. There is a niche, there is a space to revisit whatever subject matter which we have. So I club this with one of the very important texts of social sciences in general, and that is Ervin W. Gouldner. Anti-monotheia, the myth of value-free sociology. You know, when you read actually, whether it is Zeitlin, what I was talking about, the way you have to bring in religion, attitude, belief in art, culture, and you have to use your imagination, you have to use your intuition. Where is value-freeness? Intuition, can you have intuition without value? Can you have imagination without value? Now, this is what I think has actually forced me to talk about that how, sociology, in 1961 he wrote this article and he talks about that this myth of value-free sociology was spread by Max Weber. And Max Weber has created this opinion that value-free sociology is possible. But he says that the values-free doctrine of social sciences was sometimes used to justify the sales of one's talent to the highest bidder and is far from a new contemporary version of most ancient sophistry. So value-freeness is nothing but a very sophisticated ploy to dominate, just like politeness. You have to be polite. Vivek Kumar, you are very loud. You offend myself because you are very loud. I say that is the way I was socialized. What to do? You have to re-socialize me. But nobody talks about that, actually re-socialize. Now, therefore, friends, this whole value-free sociology, come. I know you love your classroom, but you are now a teacher. You have changed your buildings, that's different. He has gone to SIS. So, this whole value-free sociology was used by Joyce Lender in their edited volume, that is Death of White Sociology. In a very, very prominent manner they used actually this. Now, having said this, you can add number of other references for a rationale to revisit our actually theme. Now, in the light of the above discussion, we observe when we try to look at Indian sociology, we come to know that few Indian sociologists have tried to acclimatize Indian sociology on the basis of Indian knowledge system. They have tried to evolve the subject matter of Indian sociology, incorporating Western epistemology theory, but they have tried to look towards the subject matter in Indian sociology also, or Indian society. One such person is called Vivek Kumar Sarkar, and his book, if you look, the positive background of Hindu sociology, and second person which I am looking at is the dimensions of values by Radha Kamal Mukherjee. The dimensions of values by Radha Kamal Mukherjee and the social structure of values also by him. That is actually later on. I'm also trying to look at a number of other publications. One is P.H. Prabhu's Hindu Social Organization, and G.S. Ghure's Indian Sadhus, and of course Ambedkar's Philosophy of Hinduism, Buddha and his Dhamma. So I'm bringing in, few social scientists, or, to be fair to Vivek Kumar Sarkar, because he got his degree in 1910 in sociology and economics. Radha Kamal Mukherjee got the degree in 1910. We were taught that sociology emerged only in 1940, but a paper was taught actually in Calcutta in 1910, and they got the degree. Now, having said this, let us look at Sarkar at the outset, what he is trying to argue when he is trying to look at positivist sociology in Indian society. In Indian society, he argues that there is some positive element. What how he begins, I think, very important, and we should remember this because this is the allegation which has been leveled to Indian philosophy, and philosophers who are sitting here, they must be knowing that Indian philosophy is not philosophy for the world, it is actually for somewhere else. You know? So at this outset, he launches a scathing criticism of those who have undermined the existence of secular subject matter of the Indian society. Now, according to him, and I quote, the transcendental and other worldly aspects of Hindu life, I repeat, the transcendental and other worldly aspect of Hindu life and thought have been made too much of. It has been supposed and believed during last century that Hindu civilization is essentially non-economic and non-political, if not pre-economic or pre-political, and that its sole feature is ultra asceticism and over religiosity, such as delight in condemning the world, the flesh, and the devil. That is what is the local outlook. हमारे यहाँ कहा था पैसा हो गंट, बुद्धि हो कंठ, वही काम आती है। बोतल में भरा हुआ पानी किस काम का? So, friends, when he says that, actually that, transcendentalism is the basic orientation with which, Indian social sciences or whatever has been written in India, that has been approached. However, Sarkar emphasizes that the Hindu has no doubt often placed transcendental in the foreground of his life scheme, but positive background he has never forgotten or ignored. Rather, it is in the thought, the positive, the secular, and the material that the transcendental, the religious, and metaphysical have been allowed to display themselves in the Indian culture. So there is actually material, the subject matter, the positive subject matter, or you can secular subject matter is there. In the same way, Radha Kamal Mukherjee argues that in the West, it is established that science develops interpersonal or, no, sorry. Radha Kamal Mukherjee says that in the West, it has been established that science develops impersonal thinking and for its impersonal feeling and aspirations. But he says that, however, this side of human knowledge, that is also an essential ingredient of modern world picture, has developed much more in the East than the West. So if you are talking about impersonal feelings, you are talking about impersonal thinking and aspiration, they are much more developed in the East. And he gives example of Japan, he gives example of China, he gives the example of India as well. Now, in this context, the philosophical tradition in India posits the identity of finite man with Brahmana, which is fullness and totality. Thus, the universal love, compassion, non-violence are grounded in metaphysics. In the same context, R.K. Mukherjee gives concrete example of Buddhism. He also talks about Hinduism. I'm also talking about Buddhism. Buddha observed, learned to distinguish between self and truth. Buddha observed, learned to distinguish between self and truth. Self is the cause of selfishness and the source of sin. Truth cleaves to no self. It is universal and leads to justice and righteousness. Further, he emphasizes that all schools of Buddhism emphasize ahimsa or non-injury and compassion as fundamental obligation linked with self-esteem and recognition of the worth of man. And this I have taken from Radhakapil Mukherjee's Philosophy of Social Sciences, 1960 edition. Now, it is not only that. He also tries to argue that Buddhist philosophy and Hindu philosophy both develop yoga experiences for universalization of feeling and emotions, so that instead of egocentric desires and emotions, other regarding impersonal desires and emotions regulate human experiences. This actually is the only one premise on the basis of which the subject matter of Indian sociology can be looked at. Now I come to another very important aspect of the literature given by the two persons, and that is, I think, more empirical in nature. Having discussed the universalistic and secular value in the Indian philosophy system, I want to highlight the positive strands of the Indian literature which is there, and it has been given by number of people, but I'm just taking one example from Vivek Kumar Sarkar, and he says that there are 11 branches of secular literature in Indian society. 11 branches of secular literature in Indian society. Most of them are Sanskrit in language. They are, and I quote, Kavya, Natya. Now, Kavya cannot be, transcendental only. Kavya emerges from the self-experience. Kavya, Natya, Katha, Puranas, and Tantra. Then we have Itihas, Vastu Vidya, Shilp Shastra, Earth Shastra, Dharma Shastra, and Smritis. These can all be critically investigated as document of, according to him, as documents of Indian historio and sociological development. Historical development, or development of the history and sociological together. Now if this is the document one, the second aspect of this is Shukraniti. Shukraniti is another, according to him, is a positive, say, written in a positivistic, and he quotes, of course he is talking about positivism, so he defines August Comte's, and he defines actually different schools of positivism there as well. So if you you can look at it, but I'm drawing positivism because I thought that you all know what positivism is. So what he says that I am dealing Shukraniti is specifically the introduction of Shukraniti as positive background of Indian sociology. How? It is so because according to Shukraniti, there are three aspects in it. One, Niti Shastra, Arth Shastra, and Dharma Shastra. And they deal actually all different types of empirical reality of the society. That means, they have to be looked what their function was in the society. The other aspect, he says that, usually the style or the work which has been made in Indian society is Artha, Kama, Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha. But he says that Moksha is not the part of these three aspects in Shukraniti. Moksha is transcendental, but Artha, Dharma, Artha, Kama, that we have to look at. Or Dharma is not religion. He is talking that is not a religion, rather it is order. And second, artha is the interest and kama is desire. Sarkar argues that Shukra Niti should properly be studied in non-moksha and non-transcendental and non-mystical, that is secular, worldly way. And this secular, materialistic and positive element of Hindu society can be looked at. And along with this, it's not only that Sarkar restricts himself to Vedic literature, rather he comes to Buddhist texts as well. And he argues, and I quote, he says that no other source can be more valuable than these Pali treatises in an investigation into positive background of Indian sociology. So if you really want to look at Pali text with regard to reading Hindu sources and Buddhist sources, he says that there has been a problem in reading the texts by Indologists. Indologists have read these texts as two watertight compartments separately. But that is not the way to read them, because they have lived here for centuries. And how can they live without influencing each other? So reading them with watertight compartments as if that they are different will not take us too far. Now, if these are the texts, friend, there are I'm not going to bore you much, but I have also collected universal values from day-to-day utterances. I have collected at least 13, there may be many, because I thought that these, I have seen actually, these are, whenever you are meeting in a educated Northern India elite group, these utterances, they are so part and parcel that we never look at that, look what values they have in, and we actually brush them off. So I started looking at them, and I looked at least 13 of them. Yeah. One actually we have read very recently, Vasudev Kutumbakam. We have recently read On Every Nook and Corner. So the whole family, whole world is our family. It is universal. Kravante Vishwamarya. We want to convert the whole world Shresht. Santosham Param Sukham. Contentment is happiness. Satyamev Jayate. Truth is always victorious. Vidya Dadati Vinayam. Knowledge gives humility. Knowledge is power, somebody said. Ekam Sad Vipura Bahuda Vadanti. There is one truth, and intellectuals present it differently. Atithi Devo Bhava. A guest is God. Yatra Naryastu Pujante Ramante Tatra Devta. God makes their abode in the household where women are treated with respect. Janani Janma Bhumischa Sarvagadapi Garyasi. Mother and birthplace are more precious than heaven. Sarve Bhavantu Sukhina, Sarve Santu Niramaya, and you can go on. And then there is Astoma Sadgame, Tamsoma Jyotirgame. I think we all, when those who come from northern India, we all read this on our books. It was written in the first page of the text. And then we all heard actually, in films or Mahabharata, when it comes to our television, Karmanle Vadikaraste Mahapaleshu Kadachana. And last but not the least, Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu. Now, all these are day-to-day verbal or oral exchange of the meaning. And they have all universal value. That is my analysis goal. But this is not only actually thing. There are universal values also in Buddhism, and then universal values in the saint poet, illiterate saint poet at the grassroots. I just want to read this Pali text from Buddhism. It says, Panati Pata Vermani Sikha Padang Samadhyami, Adinna Dana Vermani Sikha Padang Samadhyami, Kameshu Mikshachara Vermani Sikha Padang Samadhyami, Musavada Vermani Sikha Padang Samadhyami, Sura Maya Majja Pamaddathana Vermani Sikha Padang Samadhi. If you go by this, actually simply saying that I will not even hurt to fauna and flora. I will not speak or I will not tell a lie. I will not be in intoxicant drinks or I will not hurt anyone. So these are the universal values. And then last but not the least, I have taken actually from this Begumpura, the utopia of an illiterate saint poet of Nirguna Shakha, that is formless God, and he is Ravidas. ऐसा चाहूँ राज में जहाँ मिले सबन को वन छोट बड़े सब सम बसे रहदास रहे प्रसन्न. I think you are understanding this, that I want such actually place where everyone live equally, even if they should get food and they should be happy. So this universal value has been writ large from Vedic to Buddhist, from actually great tradition to low, or you can say local tradition. But this value is actually kept in the text, or they have remained within the textbook, or therefore a textbook normative, prescriptive and static view starts emerging. What happens in the practical, I will come to that later. But friends, this gives me another point, and that is the sixth school of philosophies, because we have tried to look from Western lenses. We have metaphysics. When we look at metaphysics, especially materialism, that this world is constituted of 5 matter, or we have dualism or idealism, that no, idea is the basic matter of this world. So there is basically this materialism, idealism, and then there is dualism. Now all these we have incorporated when we study metaphysics in social sciences or sociology also, if you are talking about methodology. But are they also available to us in Indian sociology? That is actually my worry, and I was trying to, with of course our friends, this was a discussion that can we really think of having this sixth school of philosophy in our social sciences as well. Now we all know that Indian philosophy has been divided into 2, heterodox and orthodox, and I'm just talking about that how this actually 6 schools, which is orthodox, and 3 are heterodox. But I just want to talk about first epistemology in social sciences taught to us was having 2 main. One was observation and another was rationalism. Now we have clubbed together, Kant has talked about. But in India, there are 6 ways of the understanding, or you can say 6 ways in which we have epistemic basis. One is perception, that is pratyaksh perception, anuman inference, verbal testimony, shabd praman, comparison, upman, postulation, arthapatti, and non-apprehension, anuplabdhi, non-apprehension. Now these are the 6 ways in which we actually try to arrive at our epistemology. But there are different schools which try to look at. One of the school in Hatuda, that is Charavak school, only believes in perception, that is sense perception. Charavak talked about only sense perception, that is actually writ large, and he says that pratyakshmeva ekam pramanam. Pratyaksh, that is perception, is the only that is only the way that I will identify the reality, otherwise I will know. Therefore there is a criticism. But if you go to another school, that is yoga accepts 3 praman, and they are agreed with Sankhya. These three pramans are these. One is perception, pratyaksha, inference, anuman, and verbal testimony. So it's not that only that we have one school or one epistemic basis of understanding. We have 6 epistemic bases. Now this brings me to another point, and I like that also because we were told, yes, philosophies, especially I'm more interested with Vaisheshika philosophy, because Vaisheshika philosophy is quite close to materialism. Vaisheshika philosophy says that there are 5 elements and this world is constituted of 5 elements: Prithvi, Jal, Agni, Gagan, and Vayu. And you know, this 5 elements, if you visit northern India villages, it is very much actually, you know, in the oral tradition. Chit Jal Pavak Gagan Samira. That is the way actually it talks about. But we never thought that actually this is with us. And can we really think of understanding the reality with our own vantage point? Now, it is not that, you know, Vaisheshika only talks about these 5. It also takes ahead 4 more aspects of the reality. One is Kala, that is time. Then is Din, that is space. And Atman, that is self, soul. And Manas, mind. So, if reality is being approached in this manner, I think we don't have to read Russell of time and space. It is here actually. And also, you know, to understand the word that is actually a word is understood from 3 perspectives. Word is not only studied with the meaning. It is Abhida, what it is, Lakshana, what are the characteristics, and Vyanjana, how can you really look at it. So I think it is much more deeper understanding of the reality from word to epistemology and then philosophy. So if we can, or can we really incorporate with these elements in our sociology, that was one of the very important aspects. Last but not the least actually, that how all of a sudden these universalistic values, you know, these universalistic values, especially, you know, I'm reminded of Ambedkar, who had quoted that how Indian women once upon a time enjoy a very high pedestal where they were in dialogue with the leaders of the society also. And he gives the example of Sulabha and Janaka. And Sulabha comes and talks about Janaka, that you have to debate with me. Janaka said, no, I cannot do a debate with a woman. So Sulabha says that, look, soul has no gender, and therefore you have to debate with me. Now that was the assertion with which women had existed. But what happened, and why these universal values? I have taken oral tradition of the values. I have talked about book view of the traditional values, whether it is Buddhist or whether it is Vedic or Hindu. But why did it all were actually, you know, reduced to particularism? Now, to begin with, I will say that Rig Veda, Purusukta, 10th Mandal, how it has been identified and who identified. The first, actually, you know that there are 10,580 richas in Rig Veda, 10 mandal and 132 sukta, if you go by that. But how come our sociologists, Gure, Pete, how they have identified one richa and in that one sutta? And you know, there is a criticism by B.N. Sarkar, there's criticism by P.H. Prabhu, that there is no hierarchy given and enshrined in the Rig Veda Purusukta 10th Mandal. how did they created this hierarchy also? And who created? I don't know whether it is construction or it is something else. Second thing is that there is no restriction on osmosis. The give and take of the food, that was not there. Marriage was not there. Actually, you can do marriage and they can go osmosis. I'm talking about give and take. But how did and when did it stop? Second, actually, how did the term Kshatriya was included in the Rig Veda Purusukta, and when and who? Because in Rig Veda Purusukta it was not included, and then actually it was put a watertight compartment. Then also actually we have seen that how this the rule of paternity and maternity. Earlier the rule was that the lower strata woman, if married a higher caste man, of course his offspring will go there, the descent will be traced from there. But if a lower caste male married to a upper caste male, then there is no transfer, because the paternity is the certainty, as they said. Though it was mother as a certainty, motherhood is a certainty, but the lineage was traced from father's side. But why and how and who changed this? Because Ambedkar wrote an article called Madness of Manu, that how Manu tried to change from paternity to maternity. The father's side was stopped and the lineage of the offspring will be from the mother's side. And then from onwards, the deterioration of the status of the women stopped. Now, therefore, friends, I think, there are a number of other ways. If you look at how from Varna, the institution of caste, which is again reductionism of osmosis or development, and three institutions. I'm again reading from Ambedkar. Three institutions: sati, child marriage, and widowhood. They have no written document evidence. They don't have any evidence, and how come they have been intruded or included in the Indian society? Now, therefore, I think the status of different sections of the society, how it has deteriorated, and how come only few, a small population could enjoy the universal values or universal laws, or for them it was everything, and for others they were excluded. How it has happened? I think if we really venture into it, if we go into that, I think we can evolve a different sociology. And that's where I will stop.